Welcome, Foot Clan. It is the DFS Footballers, DFS, for the rest of us podcast to get you guys ready for week 7. It was a good week 6 for me. I don't know about you two guys. We'll talk about that in a second. Although, it didn't have to obviously involve the show brought to you by Gardner Minshew, no Beowulf. Okay, I didn't have him in my lineup. I destroyed you guys in our contest. How'd you guys do overall? I mean, I won a little bit of money. Unfortunately, it was one of those. I played too many tournaments. I'm like Nando. I play a bunch of tournaments, and I should play more cash.
Yeah, it was a good cash game day. I mean, it was great for the Vikings. That's all it was. It was Cousins, Diggs, and Thielen, and not so much Thielen.
100% ownership of Diggs helped.
Yeah, having that guy against that Eagles secondary certainly paid off.
Yeah. Actually, Joe, before while you answer your question, I want you to touch on one thing, because we haven't done it so far this year. I'm surprised we haven't done this so far. That's on me for not bringing it up. One of the things that you're really good at is game selection. And so when you answer how you did last week, I also want you to bring up, just real quick before we dive into week 7 for everybody out there, the importance and how to find the best games to make the best potential return.
Yeah, absolutely. It ties into kind of my strategy in general. But before I guess dive into that, I'll say that I was on the other side of that game, had way too much Dalvin Cook, decided to kind of play the defense doesn't matter thing there and just hope that he would get some passes. And I was just watching him just get taken out and not get the touches that we're normally seeing from Dalvin. So that was tilting. Actually was still pretty live in the 1500 just because I pivoted over from Crowder over to Robbie Anderson, which was good. Still in a really good spot in the 5K buy-in on DraftKings, which is spanning over 5 weeks. It's
called we're not playing.
Well, just in general, like it kind of ties into what I'm about to get to. But that's a 5-week contest, so like basically just trying to stay above the halfway point there. So decent start there. But in general, like I think that when you're trying to look at contests, you really want to focus on smaller fields. That's what I do, number one. But more or less trying to get these ones that actually double your money when you cash. I think that's really important. So the 1500 that I talk about a lot, there's only 110 people in it. It does double your money for a min cash, which I think is super important. And even if you're not playing those stakes, like still trying to find some of the smaller contests, you can go to the DraftKings tab, FanDuel tab, whatever it is, and just target these ones that have under 100 people, and just really starting with those to build up your bankroll, I think is one of the better ways to go if you don't want to just attack cash games as well.
And Jake, Pat Mayo, obviously a friend of the show. We've all done some shows with him, the PMA experience. He has one of the better contests on DraftKings. A shout out to his listener league. I mean, there's rake free, and you can put in 3 entries. And, even if you finish inside the top 250, for example, like that's winning $50. With the score last week of 175 would do it for you just to cash. So it's a great contest. And yeah, shout out PME. Go check it out.
Yeah, so there you go. Pat's doing us favors over here. And plus, if you go watch the show that we do every single week with the rankings, and that's not just to be like, oh, watch the show, but he gives out free 20 DK bucks just to put stuff in the comments every single week. So there you go, some free money for you out there. Joe, I like your back. It's really starting to get together back there behind you.
Yeah, we're getting close, man. It's I got a couple more helmets back there now. Just picked up a Travis Kelce and a George Kittle as well. So I guess friend of the footballers, Pristine Auction. Shout out those guys. I've been kind of going a little bit nuts. Maybe I should calm down a little bit with that kind of thing.
I was Chris. I was looking at a Pete Alonso bat on there. That's what I was actually looking for. But the problem is behind me. Like I don't have there's too many sectioned off. I can't get a bat across. So I'm trying to figure out even if I can do that. What's the Cardinals signature and what's the Saints signature behind you?
Yeah, so all the ones. So if anyone's watching this on YouTube, I'll have to get like a widescreen version of this next week. But I have Kamara, David Johnson, and then Zeke at the bottom, and then Kittle and Kelce at the left side. I got room for one more. So what do you guys think I should get for the last one?
Saquon Barkley.
Ooh, I got the Saquon jersey, or else I would.
No, get a helmet.
Will Fuller.
Actually,
Will Fuller.
You know what? Yeah,
that might be the play.
You should Gardner Minshew.
Yeah. So
don't start.
Actually, no. In all seriousness, how do you not? And let's start. Well, actually, you know what? I want to tie it into it. I'm going to give the cash tease. Hold on 1 second, everybody.
Straight cash, homie.
And so where I'm going with this is how many times you mention him, Joe. You should just get Leonard Fournette. And I bring him up also because he's the chalkiest running back, and for good reason. Is this start your lineup with Leonard Fournette in cash and just move on from there?
Uncle Lenny, man, they finally got him to 7K on DraftKings. It's week 7. He's been seeing volume like Christian McCaffrey for all the entire season. Like, I don't know. It's not gonna be efficient. So I stream every Sunday as well, after kickoff and before kickoff. So start at 11:30, but then I go right on after. And the funniest thing in chat on Twitch is just people just like cheering for these like 3-yard runs from Fournette like straight into the line of scrimmage. I think that might be my favorite part of the morning.
So are you doing them? I mean, I'm assuming you have him in your lineup.
I mean, I'm projecting him for the most touches on the slate right now, and he's at 7K. It's pretty tough to get away from him, I think. They are on the road, but Cincinnati, a team that you can definitely run on for sure. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you really have to overcomplicate the Leonard Fournette thing. I think that you can pretty much just lock him in and start with there in cash games. If you don't have him, that's pretty aggressive fade, in my opinion.
And get his helmet. You need to get his helmet. I mean, he is your boy. Chris is nodding. Yes, he needs his helmet, doesn't he?
Especially when he wins you all the monies. This
that would be good,
right?
I would not be upset.
It's hard to. I mean, Joe's right. It would be an aggressive fade. It's really hard to get away from this guy. The Bengals allowing a league high 185 rushing yards, 269 last week, 266 the week before that. No team has allowed more than 250 in 3 straight, and it may just happen. And by the time it's all said and done, he'll have more touches than CMC. So he's getting a ton of work.
Well, and on top of that, Chris, the biggest thing that we've been talking about with the Bengals is that the backup running backs against them do amazing. There's not like Raquel Armstead's not involved that much compared to a lot of teams where you would say, 30, 40%, and you like them both. This is kind of a situation like if they were playing the Bills, you'd be like, hey, I like Devin Singletary. Yay. But this is like Leonard Fournette could easily come out of this game with 30 plus touches.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, he's got 141. He's just, I think, 19 shy of McCaffrey, and he's catching balls, and that's why Joe's liked him so much. It's why we've all liked him so much, and we haven't understood his price, especially on DraftKings. 4 catches, 6-2, 4-6. Like, that's a pretty solid game log, and he's well on his way to a career high in receiving yards and catches.
There's so much value in a guy that you just know is not going to get pulled at the goal line, like you were saying, Jake. I think that's like something that we still probably can't understate. Like, there's not even many spots in the league, even for some of these bell cows, where you don't have to just tilt someone else coming in. And, yeah, exactly. So, I think you just take advantage of those spots in DFS for sure.
All right, so let's talk about 2 quick situations that could come around come Sunday. Let's talk about the Gurley situation. If there is no Gurley, we go back to what we did with last week with Malcolm Brown and Darrell Henderson. But to that point, Joe, if there's no Todd Gurley and Malcolm Brown, I'm assuming Darrell Henderson has to just plug him in free square. But if only Gurley is out, do you touch both of them, either one? What are you looking at for that?
Yeah, we're 5 minutes in. We've already hit the hashtag free square quota, I think. Yes. But no, I mean, I wasn't really on Mark. I'm sure. I wasn't on the Malcolm Brown train last week I don't even think since the start of the week. I just don't play guys that don't catch passes. But yeah, if we get, Henderson. Henderson, I think if he's the only guy, that makes more of like a Chase Edmonds type of play that we talked about as being a guy that you would just lock in if we can kind of
especially against the Falcons.
Exactly. I think the basically the best matchup possible for pass catching running backs. Gurley's a little bit tougher for me if he does play. I guess his price is still relatively reasonable, but that one scares me a little bit. But I think that the passing game for the Rams, I'm sure we'll talk about them when we get to the GPP section. That's honestly probably where I'm at right now as far as the Rams offense this week.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't play Gurley in cash regardless. I'll take a shot on him if he plays in a tournament, and I have no interest in Brown either. I suppose if he doesn't play, I'll go Henderson. You saw what happened when they tried to run the football last week. Goff had a career low 78 passing yards. Respect to San Fran, but I think he just goes back to slinging it, high total game. I'm interested in Goff and the passing weapons, not so much his run game. But Henderson's price on DK 35 is a nice price if Brown and Gurley don't suit up. Yeah, it's hard to ignore that.
I mean, it's only 52 on FanDuel. It's really, it's beautiful. It's a free square. As you said, hashtag free square. So here's the other one real quick. Not quite. Is this hashtag half free square? Because the price is a little bit more expensive because he actually gets used, well, more so last year than this year. But against the Bears, if there's no Latavius, there's no Alvin Kamara, and Latavius Murray is getting the entire workload. Joe, is this more tournament for you because of the matchup, or is it's still Latavius Murray? We saw enough from him last year where we know he can handle being the feature back.
Probably, yeah. I would say that Latavius Murray is kind of like my Mark Ingram. He's just a guy that I guess have so many weird biases towards because I don't think he's very good. But yeah, he's very capable as a pass catcher. I would prefer a play like that for sure in comparison to someone like Malcolm Brown, who, I mean, obviously ended up being extremely popular last week. I think that was people kind of forcing it a little bit in a week where we didn't have a lot of great value. It seems like it might be another week like that, to be honest. There's going to be some tight ends that we're going to want to pay up for, which I'm sure we'll get to. And I don't love the cheap wide receivers this week, so we're going to have to figure out. It'd be nice if we did get a little bit of running back value to open up, but it seems a little bit early to just kind of talk about some of these guys.
Let me follow that up, and then I want Chris to answer the same follow-up question to you. One of the lineups I did last week included Malcolm Brown, and it didn't hit, but I still cashed, even in a tournament and a cash lineup, because I went so dang heavy at wide receiver. If we have no Alvin Kamara, if we have no Malcolm Brown and Todd Gurley, it just seems like you put in Darrell Henderson, you put in Latavius Murray, and you just destroy everybody else at wide receiver, and including tight end too, is where you could just get anybody you want, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think that for the people that got in DeAndre Hopkins last week, that was probably what they were thinking, right? Like if you played Malcolm Brown, that was the path of DeAndre Hopkins. Good, that's what I mean. Good game. So if you miss on that high price wide receiver, you're still missing out on the ceiling that you get from some of these other guys. Like another slate without Christian McCaffrey, not a fun slate for me to break down just because I just play that guy every week. But we'll make it there. We'll start with Lenny and go from there probably. But yeah, I think that it's totally fine. I think that the value at running back does look a little bit better this week. I'll admit that.
Yeah, to your point, I played Hopkins, was able to cash as well. Spending down on some guys like Brown, I didn't have too much exposure, but when you spend down, it allows you to do some stuff with your line. I think I even had Everett in a lineup that cashed because you have Diggs and he goes off and you're fine. But my problem with Latavius, and I'm glad to hear the Latavius talk because it makes me feel a little bit better that maybe people will pivot off Frank Gore. I know it's Frank Gore and Singletary's back, but they're not going to give him a full workload against Miami. This team is brutal. They're 17-point favorites, Buffalo at home. The defense is going to put them in really good spots to score. I like Allen too. I know we like John Brown, but I think Frank Gore, double-digit carries in every game, probably going to get that in this one. I'm sure he finds the end zone. Same price, $5,200 compared to $51. I'd much rather go with Gore.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about a few other options. By the way, the chat that I just did over at The Athletic, everybody's playing seasonal out there because I know there's a lot of people listening for seasonal as well. The Devin Singletary hype train right now, sell high. Chris, you would be
it's through the roof.
It's insane. The questions I was getting, like Singletary, like I don't think Joe Mixon's going to be good at this point because his team is destroying him. But when people are like, should I trade Joe Mixon for Devin Singletary? Or like those kind of conversations, just like, are we really there with Devin Singletary already? And then the Kenyon Drake potentially being traded real life has got everybody going through the roof for Kenyon Drake too. So there's your two sell highs in seasonal, by the way, for a little seasonal special for you guys. Speaking of special, I forgot to mention 10% off the DFS pass if you put in code podcast. Very simple to remember. All right. So you mentioned Frank Gore. You guys haven't mentioned one guy yet. I want to go back to Joe. Joe's what's another one? And hopefully somebody brings him up at this point because if not, I'm going to be angry at you guys.
There's a couple guys in the mid range that I think make a decent amount of sense. Josh Jacobs at 5K.
No, there you go. Boom. Right off the top. Thank you.
I think he's underpriced. For sure. I think he's someone that we have seen a little bit more usage in the passing game. I'm baffled by
his price on draft. You know his price, 5,000 on DraftKings. Are you kidding?
Yeah, and that's like one of his highest. He was 4,500 last time we saw him.
Hey, yeah, I can cut off Joe. You can't cut.
Oh no, I didn't have a whole lot. I didn't have a whole lot more else to say besides that he's seen. Back-to-back games, he's averaged 24 total touches. So he played over 60% of the snaps. I think it's still a great spot. Even though Green Bay and whatnot, I think you can still probably. We can project him for at least. 3-4 targets in every game now? Is that safe to say? So I think at that price, he's probably fine. Here's
the thing, Joe, is you didn't say it, but you alluded to it. You said, even though it's Green Bay, like people have been saying this, Green Bay is a good matchup for running backs. Everybody's like, well, they've only given up one 100-yard rusher, but at the same time, they've given up almost the most touchdowns running the ground. And it's been balanced out against the teams they face where it's been two guys going for 70 and 80 and one going for 60 and 85. So when you have the concentration in Josh Jacobs, which is, of course, the downside is maybe they come out of the bye and John Gruden goes back to what he did in weeks 1 and 2 and splits it up too much. But if you're going to get 70%, you could get another 100-yard game against them, Chris.
Yeah, you know why they haven't? It's only won one 100-yard guy is because they've been playing duos. week 1 was Chicago, and we were just reaching for Montgomery to get some touches. But then Lindsey and Freeman both over 100 yards. Howard and Sanders both over 100 yards, and both over 150
exactly.
actually. So yeah, I'm definitely on board with that call as well. I think it's a good one.
You guys got any more that you're looking at?
Well, in terms of just somebody being safe, I think we talk about him all the time. Certainly I do. Chris Carson, he's just getting all the touches, even putting the ball on the ground. Yeah, it's just another 100-yard game from him, 3 in a row, 63 carries over that span. You know what Seattle wants to do. They run the football, and Russell Wilson continues to be super efficient. But
we all just mentioned our 3 guys. We got Leonard Fournette for Joe, with Chris Carson, with Josh Jacobs. Those are the helmets we need to get.
We do, yeah. And Carson keeps fumbling, but like it doesn't seem to matter.
Rashard Penny can't even get on the dang field, so it doesn't. I mean, we can hope for the talent all we want, but get on the field. Hey, Joe, let me ask you about this, and Chris too. We haven't mentioned San Francisco. Terrific matchup, and this is a week where I see you shaking your head already, Joe. But hold on. You say no chance. Hold on. Tevin Coleman was part of a backfield where multiple times he and that other Devonta Freeman guy both finished as RB1s in the same week under Kyle Shanahan. You really shaking your head that much no for the price?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're probably okay. I much prefer some of the other guys we talked about in that price range. 5,600 for a guy that's going to touch the ball 15 times. Not for me. They're going to run a ton. It's Washington. I get that. But like Washington's so bad. Is there an argument even that like at some point, like Tevin Coleman isn't going to even see that many touchdowns? If they're that far ahead, like you might see some other guy. Yeah, we might see Mostert get involved. It's a 3-headed backfield. No, not for me. Sorry.
Hey, that's why I brought him up. Yeah. So you agree,
tournament.
Chris?
I would do Coleman in tournaments. Maybe just 1 or 2 shares. That's it. But yeah, it's because of the crowded backfield. And Joe's absolutely right. I mean, Mostert has only touched the ball, I think, maybe 10 times over the past 2 weeks, but it's been in situations where San Fran has just been ahead. Their defense is legit.
No,
they're going to have a good week.
Breed is actually the tournament play because Coleman's inside the top 10 projected. Breed is way down by Malcolm Brown and Austin Eckler.
They're both solid. Yeah. Breed is
there. You go. Well,
good.
I think what everybody's scared about with Matt Breida is he's the between the 20s guy. And then, unless he's carrying it in from getting hurt there. All right. So let's talk wide receivers. You said tournaments, Joe. Are you not going to the Rams in cash?
I think that, if you wanted to jump on Robert Woods, he would make some sense just because of his price probably, and everyone's just like really down on him. 5,900 seems like a great price for him over on DraftKings. I think Woods, he's still 8th in the NFL in targets this year. He hasn't caught a touchdown pass. So I think that Woods is someone that would make sense, I guess, because of his price. As far as like other kind of cash game options, like, are you guys interested in Kenny Golladay even against Minnesota at 5,800? I think that he's someone that if we're just looking at his weighted opportunity, he's a price play that stands out to me, at least early in the week. But yeah, I think that there's not as great of like really cheap options this week, at least so far. I'm kind of in between like the Golladay and Mike Williams train for those ones that are kind of in the mid range. But where are you guys at?
Yeah, it's hard for me to get away from that Atlanta and LA game on both sides of it. I just feel like there's going to be so many points scored in that game. Rams have a team implied total of 29.5. It's a 54-point total. Both defenses look really bad lately. I know they just acquired Jalen Ramsey, but I'm still like, how much success is he going to be able to have in this game? He could. He's one of the best corners in the league, but I still think there's going to be a lot of points. So I have no problem actually going back to Kupp. I don't know if people will, because of last week, they're just off of him. Jake and at The Athletic on a chat on Tuesday, somebody said, "What do I do with Cooper Kupp?" And I said, "What do you mean?" Like the targets and the catches and the yards are still there with just one bad game. So if that's the mindset,
questions are terrific.
Yeah, if that's the mindset, then my goodness, like Kupp, it's very interesting. Woods, Kupp, and Cooks. I think I would go Kupp, cash, Cooks, tournaments, but it could be a Woods game too. Like Atlanta is just that bad.
Well, the projected ownership is actually Kupp's still number 2, and then Woods is sandwiched in between with Cooks last. So there you go, is what kind of you were saying for tournament wise. All right, so then where else are you going cash wise outside of the Rams?
What about Golden Tate? Is it too risky? Is it too risky to get Golden Tate? I think it's fine. No Shepard. No. You're going to get Ingram and Barkley back. I think the offense will be better against Arizona. It's another game I think will be a lot of points scored. So it's
a great play because he's not playing outside. Darius Slayton's going to get the tough draw of, guess what? Patrick Peterson's off his suspension. Sorry, buddy, but you get the one slapped with Pack. And he's coming. This is his first game back too. Like, you could tell me he's not going to like be a little bit jazzed up about this game. So yeah, I actually think Golden Tate's a very sneaky, not just cash. I think he's a decent tournament play too, similar to last week. Granted, he's one play away from being shut down against the Patriots. But that's the Giants' style, is get the guys into the short intermediate game space. But obviously, where are you, Joe? Because on that one specifically, because Saquon Barkley and Evan Ingram coming back, I don't trust Daniel Jones to support 3 people.
Yeah, me either. I think that kind of the way ownership is shaking out, I think that Tate makes a lot of sense. Like, Tate's going to ruin a lot of people's day that are just going to kind of lock in Evan Ingram, I think. So I at least potentially. So someone that could see similar types of targets. It is the Cardinals. Like, we're going to be targeting this game for sure. I think it's a little bit less clear, I guess, with Saquon back in the mix as to how where the target share is going to go. But yeah, three options. We like all of these guys. It's going to be interesting because I think only 2 of them probably have a good chance to really hit value.
All right. So on the other side of that ball, what are you guys thinking about Larry Fitzgerald and Christian Kirk? And it's funny because on DraftKings, there's a gap. On FanDuel, they're the same price. And like, for the same price, you guys know how much I love Christian Kirk, but for the same price, I'm taking Fitzgerald.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially in cash. Yeah, I think Fitz is the cash, and Kirk, you take that gamble on in tournaments. But yeah, Fitz has been pretty safe, at least 5 grabs in every single game. I mean, it's another high total, 49. It's 90%
of the time in the slot, he's not going to see Jenkins.
Yeah, exactly. It's perfect, right? So yeah, I have absolutely no problem. Julio or Fitz is always in the DFS pass and cash. Like, it's almost like a copy and paste.
I think you hit the nail on the head, man. It's Fitz on FanDuel, and I think Christian Kirk, like, for that significant price discount on DraftKings, makes a ton of sense. Like, that 5K range is pretty jam-packed. I don't think you'll get crazy ownership on Kirk coming off that injury, even though it is a great matchup and whatnot. But yeah, that's a pretty, like, they don't want to move Fitz's price on FanDuel. This is like a thing we've been talking for like 3 weeks, I feel like.
He has no respect because I guess we just don't know. The ceiling doesn't seem to be high with him. It's just that solid floor.
Mm-hmm.
They're big on doing hopscotch the right way, just like me. I mean, can't do it on a commercial. What the hell is your problem, man? Come on. All right. Real quick, the Seattle Seahawks. Any interest in Tyler Lockett, or is it just not cash because you just never know if it's going to be a 3-target game?
That's my problem with Lockett and what Baltimore has done recently. They took Boyd out of the game. They had a game a couple weeks ago where they took Beckham out of the game. So I think that their focus will be on Lockett. So I kind of have some interest in DK Metcalf in tournaments, but now that Will Dissly's out, he could be a red zone.
Do you know how many games Lockett has more than 5 targets?
2, maybe? Week 2 and 3?
2.
Yeah.
12 and 14.
Yeah, and he went off in those games.
The crazy thing is, though, he's catching like 90% of his passes. So
Russell Wilson,
yeah.
Lockett's such a tough one to click though in single entry, just because, like, for his price, right? At the game script goes wrong, you're completely dead. Your lineup's over. Like, I don't know. It's so hard because the team that's just gonna run when they're up. Like, I've missed the Chris Carson train enough this year to, I guess, realize that if they do kind of get ahead, that he's going to be the guy that they're going to feature. So I love how Chris mentioned Chris Carson earlier. So I think that's the Seattle side of the game that I would like. I like Metcalf to in tournaments for sure, especially if you're rolling out Russell Wilson, who I think will be pretty popular in this spot against Baltimore, who people are kind of starting to understand that the Baltimore defense isn't elite. So I don't know. I think Lockett's overpriced for me based in that range. I'm doing everything I can to try and get up to Cooper Kupp, I think.
Hashtag elite. We just threw that name out too. So there you go. Anybody else before we move to tight end?
John Brown, I guess. Would you go there in cash? I know he's that.
I would absolutely 100%, but if we know he's healthy.
Yeah, keep an eye on him for sure.
Same, Joe?
Yeah, I love John Brown. I think that he was one of the guys I'm trying to fit into my FanDuel team for this week for sure. I think another guy that we probably missed, though, T.Y. Hilton. Depending on how his snaps kind of pan out, I think that he's a guy. I mean, he just destroys the Texans, right? I know that it is Brissett now, but even, I don't know, he's been dealing with that thigh, but he still played 83% of the snaps last week. He's coming off a week of rest. I don't know. I think that his price tag, like sub 6K on DraftKings, I think he's a really good play. I think he'll be really popular in cash games, actually.
I'm so glad. That's who I was waiting to see if anybody mentioned. That was the next one I was going to say. Yeah. But the same thing, too, is he just destroys the Texans. I get that's narrative built, and it's not exactly the huge sample, but, this is kind of the things that we deal with in baseball, too, like batter versus pitcher. At what point does it matter enough? Anybody else, Chris, or tight end time?
Yeah, let's go to tight ends.
All right. Well, then you get to go to tight ends first.
All right. Well, Hooper, and it's not because of last week. It's because he's good. Like again, he's really good. He just doesn't get the respect.
good.
Right? Great analysis. Last year, everyone was talking about the big three, and it was warranted, the big three tight ends, but it was Hooper who was fourth in catches, and now he leads all tight ends in catches right now heading into week 7. He's got 42. He's second in yards and touchdowns and targets. He's just a good tight end, and I just think he continues to get better and better. So he's come a long way since the Falcons blew that Super Bowl. You know, that was his coming out party, I thought, in that game. He had some big catches, and I just see like improvements from him every week. And if Ramsey is going to shut down Julio, then somebody's going to have to catch some balls here because, again, that Falcons defense is pathetic.
Yeah, he's a great play. I think that if you did want to pay down slightly from there, Darren Waller is a guy that I'll just continue to keep bringing up at tight end. I think that if we're just looking at
new contract.
Yeah, hey, there you go. Maybe he just kind of takes a breath at that point too.
Contract swag.
The Oakland ones are so hard to click for me too, just because you can never really project them for a ton of plays, and Green Bay is going to slow things down as well. The team total is not great. They are on the road, but the volume's there. I mean, as far as like his target share based on where like kind of what they're going to do on offense, I think at 4,700, that price tag really stood out to me for Waller. But I'll tee up the Evan Ingram thing for you, Jake. I think that I'm sure he's one of the guy that's going to be really popular this week, of course, in this matchup.
Gonna be. He's number 1 projected ownership, and it's not even close with Hunter Henry at number 2. So, I mean, it's just that's the easy, obvious one. Everybody destroys the Cardinals, the tight end, except for Tyler Eifert. I'm still going to take that to my grave on that one. The fact is, Ingram's easy. That's the easy one. But to your point, Joe, and what you brought up earlier, we'll talk about tournaments here in 1 second. He's a very interesting pivot off of that because, as you mentioned, you know, if Golden Tate kills him, I mean, and you have Golden Tate, or you go somewhere else in general. I mean, he could be the lineup killer for the tournaments on the flip side of things because he can still have a decent day, you know, 4 or 5 catches for 60, 70 yards. But if you don't get the big touchdown or the big day that everybody's expecting, his ownership is going to be through the roof. Like I said, it's not. He's actually top 5 ownership, period. Like overall of everything, of every position, everything included. That's how high he is. I'm going to go to the one name that you guys didn't mention, Mark Andrews, because Mark Andrews, the Seahawks, for now, a full year of 2018 and still through 2019, whatever they do talent-wise, despite having Bobby Wagner, whatever it is, they don't know how to defend the tight end, and tight ends do really well against them more often. Actually, I'd say 80% of the time. Mark Andrews has been a great play most weeks, and I think this is actually a matchup that if you're going away from Ingram and you want to save more so on DraftKings, but if you want to save some money, Andrews is the big play for me.
Geez, Eifert's best game of the season came against Seattle. 5 catches.
Yeah.
Uzomah had 4. So to prove your point, I love the Waller call because it looks like Tyrell Williams is kind of trending towards doubtful. So a few more targets for him and Jacobs with the call earlier, a few more catches as we alluded to.
I have to tell you, I feel better about Waller if Tyrell Williams is out there decoy wise than if Tyrell Williams is completely not out there, because your top 2 wide receivers, who they're going to roll out, Zay Jones and Hunter Renfrow is the top 2. Like the attention is going to fall down to Waller.
Yeah, for sure, as it should.
So is there any cheaper guys though? We should probably talk at least 1-2 cheaper guys for cash for tight end if people don't want to. No, you don't like any of these guys under 4K or so?
Tight end is so trash already. Like this is the same thing. Like seasonal. Like I don't want to go to the waiver wire, and this is what I'm talking. Like cheaper guys is waiver wire. Like we already brought up Hunter Henry. If you're going cheaper than Hunter Henry, I think you're out of your mind.
All right, we'll save it.
Yeah,
for
it's really tough. Yeah.
Okay. Well, tournaments, but not in cash.
I know you're really just throwing darts at what Fells or.
I mean, what do you want, Robinson?
Oh, we'll get there. I was talking about the game selection before. If you're not going to be on kind of the chase the Arizona matchup, you're going to be just fading like the entire field. So at tight end,
really. I mean, he's pretty cheap on FanDuel, $5,700 compared to up at the top 68, 71 for Kittle and Ingram. It's not bad.
That's a big one right there. And I still don't get the disparity of Andrews to DraftKings to FanDuel, why it's such a big difference there. All right, so let's talk quarterbacks then. Always remind everybody out there, it's pretty flat. It's but cash, flat, easy. You're not paying up for Russell Wilson. I'm assuming not, because what you brought up, Joe, before, like you just can go sideways so quickly and then all of a sudden you're just out.
It can. I mean, I think that he's still like a pretty good play for sure. I think he's going to be popular. I think that, we've talked about him a couple times now, but Josh Allen it seems like a spot where if he is healthy against Miami, like that team total I'm a little bit scared of the spread, but trying to get better about not avoiding those, just that Tom Brady effect that I was trying to kind of avoid earlier. I think it's different for a guy that can give you a lot on the ground as well. I mean, just someone that's going to throw deep.
Here's my one concern.
With it.
Again, Russell Wilson, do you want to know what Russell Wilson's 2 worst games were?
Let's hear it.
Cincinnati and Arizona.
Interesting.
Games where they were up and they just ran with ours.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. I'm agreeing with what your point was before, and that's the crazy thing to say is like look at his schedule and say his 2 games where he didn't hit 20 points were the 2 easiest matchups he had.
That's probably part of the reason that I guess historically have never really gotten Russell Wilson right, because you play him in what you think are the better spots, and then he just like lets you down like pretty consistently.
He obliterates the Saints,
yeah,
and then he does nothing. Like I think, hold on. Yeah, okay. He scored more against the Saints than the Cardinals and Bengals games combined.
Yeah, he's a hard one to figure out. I usually don't play him in cash. There was a time where I would when he was running like a madman, but he doesn't do that anymore. Like you can't count on it. He has those 30-yard games. I think he had a 51, but it's not consistent.
Are you segueing into a name I hope you're about to say?
I mean, I think we already talked about Allen. I mean, what, Lamar?
Nope. Who else is running a ton? Who else is running like a madman facing the Giants defense that the Giants can't?
Oh yeah, Kyler every week though. Just play Kyler every week.
Kyler for sure. 55 rushing yards per game over his last 4, 2 touchdowns over that span. He looked really good last week, and I know part of that was on the Falcons, but he didn't really have a whole lot of guys to throw to. It just seemed like
the Giants have nobody that can catch him.
Yeah, he's playing with a lot of confidence, and
if anybody hasn't seen the depth chart, you want to talk about like injuries for teams. Like the Giants have been hit in one specific area specifically, and what specific area specifically at linebacker. And I mean, they're starting guys that I'm a Giants fan, and I was even like, wait, I thought that guy was a practice squad. Like people, I'm just double checking myself. That's what's at linebacker. Kyler Murray, this could be a 100-yard game for him on the ground.
I think we have to continue to like hammer this point home though, that like these guys that run, it's so valuable in DFS and in fantasy. Because like I'll give you guys an example. So the last 2 weeks on my main 1500 team, I played Lamar and I played Kyler. I've gotten 0 passing touchdowns for my quarterback in 2 straight weeks, but I've still gotten a quarterback that got me 25 plus points in both of those weeks. So that's the floor you get. If I do guys back into the Kyler Murray game like last week and he gets 2 or 3 touchdowns, he's the best quarterback on the slate. Like Matt Ryan has to score 3 touchdowns through the air to approach that.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a bad example because of how much Matt Ryan has been smashing this year, but like a type of quarterback that's not going to run, like even not getting the touchdowns through the air, like your floor and your ceiling, I think so much higher.
Perfect one to bring up. I'll give you the perfect one. He's the number 2 projected ownership. I'll give you one hint, and I'll give the hint to Chris because he's going to get the answer right because he'll know the answer. He's in worst place for me at quarterback.
Yeah, I knew it would be Jared Goff.
See, and Jared Goff's the number 2 projected ownership.
Really?
Doesn't run, not even throwing touchdown. Like, oh my God, I hate this guy so much. And you know what? He probably will finish as a QB1 just purely because of matchup. But to your point, and to bring this actually to the point, Joe, is that he doesn't run. For your point, like he needs to throw 3 touchdowns to equal Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray rushing day, let alone if they throw 2 touchdowns, forget about it.
Yeah, I mean, talking about like that sweat show that I do on Sundays on Twitch, like we were just watching basically Lamar hit the bonus on the ground almost in the first half. Like at that point, like, I don't know, you like you said, you need like multiple touchdowns, probably 3 for one of these guys that's not giving you anything on the ground to even come close to approaching that floor.
And
all right, so one more
for Lamar though, just to put an exclamation mark on the point that we're trying to make here. I mean, Lamar has 4 passing touchdowns in the last 4 games. That's it. Just 1 in the last 2, and nobody is averaging more fantasy points than him per game. Like it's just a solid safe floor. It's like starting with 2 free touchdowns. That's basically what you're getting when you put in Lamar.
And you want 4 running back slots? There you go. You're welcome.
One more before we move on to tournaments. Chris, who do I hate almost as much as Jared Goff?
Gardner Minshew.
No, stop it.
Come
on. You know. Yes, you do. Daniel Jones, the number 3 projected
owner.
owner.
I thought I was going to say Daniel Jones, but then we've given so much love to Tate and Ingram, and like I wasn't going to say it. Yeah, of course.
No, because it's like Jared Goff. Actually, that's a really good parallel. Is you said that, but it's similar to Jared Goff. Is you have concentrated passes, you can still have the weapons put up numbers, with the quarterback still having a disappointing. He'll put up numbers, but still have a disappointing day. But he does run a little bit. I mean, I'm not making a case for Daniel Jones because I will never make a case for Daniel Jones. But I wanted to ask to see if either one of you wanted to make a case for Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I'm not going to play him in cash, but I have him written up in the DFS pass as a tournament guy, and both him and Kyler Murray. Why not? I'm going to pair him up.
Make sure you're getting 10% off with podcast to read that garbage.
I don't hate it.
Hey, man, a couple little dump offs to Barkley takes one to the house. I'm on my way. You mentioned the rushing ability. I don't hate the play.
No, I think he's totally fine. Like, we're always trying to target these games where there's going to be passing on both sides. There's going to be a lot of plays. Like, the matchup's great. Like, but the more popular one is clearly going to be Kyler Murray, right? So at that point in tournaments for a guy that's almost to that price range, like, of course in cash games for me, I'm going to try and get up to someone like Kyler or someone like Josh Allen. But in tournaments, like a pivot that could certainly work out. I mean, he's at home, nice team total. There's really not a lot of bad things to say about Daniel Jones outside of what I'm sure Jake has in his head here.
Jake, now's the time to be on your boy Minshew. Like, now is the time. Last week he was super popular.
There's no question about
Didn't do anything.
Nobody's on him this week.
Nobody's on him against the Bengals, who could not stop Lamar Jackson last week. The linebackers are hurting. They're just missing guys in their secondary too. So, I mean, Minshew is a great tournament option.
I know. There's a reason I didn't bring him up
cash.
Yet. Yeah, because we're on cash and we're about to.
You down with GPP?
Hell yeah, I'm down with some Beowulf and DJ Chark together. I'm telling you all day long. You ruined it, Chris, but thank you. I'm glad you brought him up.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Now's the time. Everybody's off of him. What do I do with Chark? Minshew's awful. He sucks. He's no good. And yeah, he has been turning the ball over a little bit because of the fumbles, but let's give some credit to the Saints defense. It's unbelievable. I haven't even lost with Drew Brees. It's just their defense has been legit, and the Bengals not so much.
Not so much. DJ Chark is actually getting some respect pricing still on FanDuel though, 6,600.
Yeah,
he's 6K on DraftKings too. Like, that's what I was gonna say. Like, is Chark your guy, or is DD someone in tournaments that we could be kind of pairing him with?
If you're going for tournaments, I would go for the savings.
Yeah,
because everybody's gonna play Fournette, right?
It's true.
I mean,
and that's the problem also with this.
Fournette,
yeah, and I think that's where, and this is another one, not as much as game choice, but roster construction for tournaments. Joe, you brought it up, Chris. We were talking about right now is the fact that if everybody's going to be on Fournette, and everybody expects Fournette to smash, and if you want to put him in a stack, that's certainly fine. But the one way to also, similar to when we said you attack the other side, well, you don't really want to attack the other side with the Bengals too much in this game, but you go to the passing game instead of the running game. Like, what if this is Minshew throws for 3 touchdowns in the first half, and that's where they make their heyday, and then Leonard Fournette still does his thing in the second half. These are ways you can kind of get a piece of the action, but still bring yourself away from the majority.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. One guy that we haven't mentioned, surprisingly, we've talked about 10 quarterbacks now, and no one said the Deshaun Watson side of it. Like, if he's not going to be that heavily owned, I get it. It's against Indy and whatnot, but if Will Fuller is just going to keep having these games where he could potentially have 5 touchdowns if he holds on to a few of them, I don't know. I think that he's the guy that we could go back to. I mean, if everyone's just piling on him after that big game and now just going to jump off, like, this would be not a bad time to jump back on. I feel like the Will Fuller and Deshaun Watson train in tournaments, like, the ceiling's there. I mean, you can make in kind of a pretty strong argument that Watson's been like kind of the 1A to Mahomes as far as like that's concerned. I think that he's still a guy we could pay up for. 7K, it's tough with all these other guys at mid 6K range on DraftKings at least. But yeah, I think in tournaments, Deshaun Watson's fine.
Deshaun Watson's barely inside the top 10 for projected ownership.
Yeah, that's what makes it so appealing. Yeah, because of his price. Absolutely. It's like,
I'm checking where Will Fuller is right now. My favorite person in the world. God, I hate you, Will Fuller. I hate your stupid face.
That's got to be the last helmet, Will Fuller.
I don't know. Let's watch. He'll smash again this week because is everybody off of him? Will Fuller. Let's control F Will Fuller. Oh no, he's still top 10 because everybody loves Will Fuller. People can't get off Will Fuller.
Yeah. But Watson over 700 yards and 8 touchdowns last 2 games. He's feeling.
Yeah. It's a fun one because the interesting thing too, this is the kind of like the opposite of what everybody usually tries to ask us when it comes to like Jared Goff and Daniel Jones is DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller are both inside the top 10. I just told you Deshaun Watson's got 8 quarterbacks in front of him. Like, how are you one without the other? Because that has to come from Deshaun Watson. And to your point, Joe, Deshaun Watson's been amazing. All right, so since we're talking quarterbacks, anybody else tournament-wise before we move to the running backs and wide receivers?
No,
not for me.
That's it, yeah.
All right, because you already brought up my Minshew to death. All right, go ahead, Chris. Where are we talking about running back? Where are you looking tournament-wise?
Well, Cook, he's probably going to be pretty popular, but I think the time is to get off of Cousins. We had fun for the past couple weeks in really good matchups, but now I think it's time with no CMC, Zeke on the Sunday night slate. I think it's time to go back to Dalvin Cook. It's not not a crazy take or anything, but it's a pretty good matchup. The Lions allow the third most fantasy points to running back, so I get off of Cook. I think people going back to Cook or Cousins and Diggs, would be a mistake. So Dalvin's going to have a day.
Is Madison just going to take 14 touches and I'll be tilting my brains out again? Like
That game was out of hand. I think that game was just out of hand. They were just going Madison. Yeah.
I don't know, man. That was the worst thing that ever could have happened to.
They brought him in and give him the touchdown for you last week from the one.
I saw it, so I actually didn't even realize how many times he touched the ball until after the game. The guy touched the ball 14 times. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Most of them were in the fourth, though.
So instead of complaining about Madison, you want to give us a pick?
No, I'd rather just complain. Is that cool? No.
I mean, that's fine. Honestly, I could have filled the entire show complaining about Beowulf. That's it. Fine.
Yeah.
At least I'm not doing the chant this week.
One guy I'm considering for sure is still Saquon. He's got that questionable tag. I don't think. I'm looking at projected ownership. Maybe people will be on it. But yeah, I think that Saquon's still a guy against Arizona. Like, we're talking about all of these guys. Like, we're talking about Daniel Jones. We're talking about Evan Ingram, like the wide receivers, and Christian Kirk. Like maybe it's just Saquon, and then that's just call it a day in this game. I think the ceiling. Obviously, if they bring him back, the Giants aren't going to bring Saquon back until he's ready, in my opinion, because this season I don't know if they're going to be a team that's going to really challenge for much anyway. So I think that Saquon 8,600. His price hasn't moved on FanDuel. He's still extremely expensive, but play him and Dalvin Cook and Lenny, and just see where you can jam it from there.
Does he go by Lenny, or are you just calling him that?
Like, I think that was Adam Levitan, and I guess for whatever reason it gets kind of stuck because on stream everyone was just like, Lenny 3-yard rush. I don't know.
So you say I don't like as Chris knows, I don't like nicknames where people didn't improve the nicknames.
You tell me he didn't improve the nickname Lenny? Is there ever been a guy that could be called Lenny more than this guy? Come on.
Yeah, really?
No, like nobody calls Golden Tate Goldie. Like seriously, we should. Here's, you know what, Chris? Do you have anybody else? Because there's still legitimately two names that haven't even been said yet that I'm surprised.
Well, DJ's one.
There you go. There's one.
DJ's one for sure on the other side of
the Giants. I think he's a great cash pick too.
Yeah.
Obviously, well, I know this is with the caveat that we get good reports for Friday as well in practice.
For sure. There's always that risk, I guess, the back, but yeah, he racked up over 100 yards last week, 16 touches, a couple touchdowns.
And he's supposedly healthier this week.
Yeah, he's getting a lot of work through the air, a ton. 33 targets, 23 catches last 4 games. So absolutely. And if whatever happens to him, same thing, we can just on repeat. If he doesn't practice Friday, doesn't play, I think Chase Edmonds, you just lock him in, confidence.
Yeah, so is that anybody else? Because there's still one more.
Is this the time where you bring up Derrick Henry like you do every show, Jake?
No. I brought him out like twice.
I'm just kidding.
I just wanted to see if I can ever get you to say yes to Derrick Henry. That's really what it is.
There will not be a day. I can guarantee you that. If he was 2K, I might consider it. I don't know. So I think that's most of the guys for me. I guess Kamara too. Like same thing with the questionable tag. It looks like he's not looking like he's even close to full strength though. So I'm not sure I'd be on that. What have you guys been doing with Devonta Freeman? I've kind of just X'd this guy out mentally. But his price is still pretty solid. He has been using the pass game a decent amount. I don't know. I think he could kind of gain some traction as the week goes on at that price.
No, see, you X'd him out mentally because if you watch Devonta Freeman play, you've seen he's toast of what he used to be. Yeah. Oh, not toast. He's like soggy bun, like I had last night on my food review. He's a soggy bun of what he used to be.
Usage is strong. The team scores points. I don't know. I think he's still okay.
Yeah, I like Freeman. I don't mind.
No, here's who Devonta Freeman is. Chris, you know this. We've said it, and we've said it on other shows, and I've said it time and again. He's James White now. That's who he is. He's James White, and he's a less explosive James White. The reason he ran well last week is because he faced the Cardinals, but if you watched him run, he still didn't look that impressive running the ball. He still looks slow. So he's like a slower, less explosive James White, which is fine because we're playing half and full point PPR. But the reason I was going to say that I have a problem with him, Joe, this week is because he's top 10 projected ownership.
Is he? Wow, I guess people are really going to chase that then.
People chase every single week. His price dropped, and he's coming off a huge game.
Yeah, he's $5,400. I know he's yet to top 88 yards on the ground. He did it last week, but 3 catches. It's like every single week. 3 catches, 16 in his last 3 games, 142 receiving yards. And if they do get in inside the red zone. We saw it last week. Both of his touchdowns, I think, were just the kind of dump offs in the red zone. I don't mind it. High total game.
All right. Well, then I'm bringing up the name because he still hasn't been brought up yet. Here we go. Nope. Still no. Still 0 for 2. Here we go. The context of what I always say about this guy heading into the season. I set all this up because I'm setting it up as the fact that I've been the biggest detractor on this guy. I was saying, I don't care how explosive he is. I have said he is the most efficient runner on his team. One of the top 10 most efficient runners in all of football. But the team doesn't use him as a bell cow. And he's coming off a game where he fumbled and Jamal Williams went off. I am going to Aaron Jones, who is the 24th highest, lowest, whichever way you want to slant it. That's where his projected ownership is. If you're going to get me in a game where I can get Aaron Jones that low, I am going to go use Aaron Jones, because if you told me 15 carries versus 15 carries for Jamal Williams, Aaron Jones' numbers are going to be better. So I'm going to Aaron Jones because now he's finally down where there's not that many people on him.
I like it. I'm an Aaron Jones truther as well, for sure. He's a guy that always performs really well in rushing expectation just because of that efficiency you're talking about. So I'm with you.
And see, the thing is, you can be a truther, but still also understand the fact that this team is just frustrating with their use. This is two different regimes that have now used him this way.
Yeah, and nobody seems to be stepping up in the passing game. I mean, he's got 22 targets in his last 3 games. Like MVS, Rodgers doesn't even look MVS's way.
MVS has now missed practice 2 yesterday, being Wednesday. So everybody pay attention to that. So Allison likely completely out. Adams sounds like he's out for another week. If MVS is even out there, I mean, we're talking about MVS and Kumaro and who else? Like Lazard is your top. Yeah.
Lazard's one of the most picked up guys in season-long formats. He's only 3K. I suppose we should just bring him up just in case that is the scenario.
Well, that's where we're going for wide receiver. So go to it, Chris.
Yeah, I mean that's basically it. I mean, MVS.
That was the end of my statement.
Rodgers he's not looked MVS's way. I know this as a season-long owner of MVS and the frustrations that I have. He won't look his way. All of a sudden, Lazard comes out on the field and he's just chucking balls to him. He had 5 targets and I think maybe 2 drives. The one in the end zone, he made a couple nice plays too.
Here's the problem with MVS.
He's a big boy.
And he's not looking his way is because he doesn't separate well.
I know. He just runs go routes. I get it. I totally understand.
And even his go routes, he's not he's not stacking well. He's not getting. It's just that first step. It's just MVS. It's like, this is why, this is one of those names where you're coming out of college, an opportunity. We always chase opportunity fantasy. That's 100% true. But opportunity is not a guarantee. And MVS is a perfect example of why it's not always a guarantee.
Yeah, absolutely. He just dropped. I wouldn't even hold in season-long leagues now.
I think one guy we probably didn't touch on enough as being one of the better plays on the slate, Mike Williams. I mean, he's almost doubled Keenan Allen in terms of his air yards as far as the team share this year. So I mean, I don't know. I think Allen's still probably a decent play. I think the Chargers might be in kind of a more of a bounce back kind of spot through the air regardless. But Williams' price, he's so much cheaper. I mean, if we're just looking at his usage, he's one of the ones that stands out right away as kind of a misprice. If you're just looking at something like weighted opportunity rating, which you guys know I value pretty heavily. So at 4,600, I think he's probably the clear mid-priced guy. And if he doesn't end up being popular, I think he's obviously totally fine in GPPs as well.
Yeah, he's 7 spots higher than Keenan Allen is in projected ownership. I think a lot of smart people are on the same page as you are with that one. Hey, you didn't bring up your boy yet.
Who's my boy? Will Fuller, John Brown? Hollywood Brown? Those are the only 3 guys I play.
The other Brown.
Only 3 guys I play. Yeah. I mean, Hollywood at some point, it seems like the play. It seems like the play that I'm just going to continue to chase. And as soon as I jump off, he'll probably have his explosion. I don't know. The ankle worries me a little bit with wide receivers, especially someone like him that, he's gonna rely on his athleticism a lot more than I think even a lot of other wide receivers in the league. But yeah, I love Baltimore every week for that. I played Mark Andrews because Hollywood was out last week. So I think that we'll talk about Mark Andrews, or I think Chris already touched on him. But yeah, Hollywood's always in play, man. Him and Will Fuller, in tournaments, just make sure you have at least some exposure to that every week. Don't be like me.
Chris, anybody else for you?
Can I get an ownership projection on Corey Davis or Adam Humphries?
I forgot it. I'm so glad you did. I saw your tweet and I was going to bring it up, but I forgot to this point.
Stick to my stomach even thinking about it. But the fact that Corey Davis
talk me off Corey Davis or something like that.
Yeah, I just need to be talked off of him because
no. So I'm actually a lot more on Humphries in this game.
I think most people will be because of what Tannehill
So to your question, they're tied for 111th overall at wide receiver. They're down by Sterling Shepard, who's out, Anthony Miller, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and Danny. Oh no, they're one spot ahead of Danny Amendola. That's where they're down by the injured and non-relevant people.
Interesting.
So I just pushed you to Corey Davis.
I mean, Marcus Mariota. Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect them to be highly owned. Let's be honest. I mean, Tennessee.
Chris, will you put one lineup together with Tannehill, Corey Davis, Delaney Walker, and Adam Humphries? Just do it. Do the Titan stack.
Yeah, that's going to be my favorite stack here in a couple minutes.
And then go out in the backyard and light money on fire. Although, does Canadian money burn? Because I know you can't rip it.
Yeah, you can't rip it, but you can definitely burn it.
Okay.
I've burned some in the past on Corey Davis. There's no question about that. But you know what? Listen, Marcus Mariota never threw his way, ever. Corey Davis is good. I'm a believer that he is good, and he came in, late in the third quarter last week. He gave him 4 targets right off the get-go. Everybody is – I'm not saying everybody, but if they're going to choose one of the two, it probably will be Humphries because of the track record of Tannehill just throwing to the slot all the time. But you just look at the Titans, there's some pretty big games here. Odell Beckham Jr. hasn't had much, but 7-71. T.Y. Hilton, 43 and a touchdown. We had Mohamed Sanu. I know he played some slot 91, but there's been some, or not Tennessee, rather. Sorry, against the Chargers. Rather, there's been some big games against their defense. Look at last week, and the week before that was Sutton. I'm not completely sold on this Chargers team. I don't think that they're checked out, but hey, maybe Tannehill might do what Mariota couldn't do.
Chris, you know what I like a lot about that play too? I think that one thing that makes a ton of sense is a lot of people are going to go to Mike Williams at 4,600, right? We're talking about the afternoon game. So like where you could potentially make a pivot. If you pivoted off of Mike Williams for a team that was struggling to a team or to Corey Davis at 4K, like that's something where you get a ton of leverage on the field for someone who's, I mean, his projected ceiling really, no matter what you're looking at, really isn't that much different. Corey Davis versus Mike Williams. So I think that that's like a decent pivot to talk about in the later games. Almost always, like if there's a tiebreaker, just play the wide receiver or whoever it is in the later game if it's that much closer, because then you can always pivot to the lower owned guy.
Yeah, listen, I had some of those numbers wrong, but I'm looking at it now. So it's Sutton 92 in the score, Golladay 117 in the score, Ty had 87 and 2 scores, and Devontae Parker had 70 and a touchdown. So there's something about wide receivers at least finding the end zone against this Chargers secondary. I know it's the Titans and the team implied total is low and it's Tannehill, but I think if he wants to keep the job, he's going to throw the football to his best weapon.
So my question is, when you throw out all those numbers, is Casey Hayward just not on them during the game?
What's going on there? I don't know. Fully.
Well, because I even just double checked while you said that just to make sure, because, you have some players out there that, we think by name, a good example would be Marshawn Lattimore, who for the first 3 games PFF had as a favorable matchup because he was playing so poorly. Mm-hmm. And I just checked and Hayward still got a minus 20%. He's still one of the top rated toughest matchups according to PFF. So again, I think that's something to dig into is 2 things. One is that's a really good stat, Chris, to hear those names because those are all outside guys. But the part of it might be is like, I guess Casey Hayward just switches a lot and not necessarily always off the best option. I don't know. I don't get that.
Yeah, I mean,
because he doesn't play one side of the field
for it either. Yeah, I mean, I don't have an explanation for it. I just know that
I'm gonna have
just some other guys that are certainly scoring some touchdowns. I mean, Kenny Stills had a big one too, 4 for 89 against them as well. So some guys have showed up.
So before we move to tight ends, any of you guys want to take a chance on Goodwin or Pettis because of the matchup?
I don't think you can go to San Francisco through the air in DFS. I don't know. Yeah, you'll get them super low owned, but what's the ceiling for a team that wants to run? I don't know. Yeah, I mean,
changes their wide receiver by game.
Yeah, I'm not interested.
You'll go broke chasing that kind of. You'll go broke chasing that kind of stuff even more than you'll go broke chasing Hollywood and Fuller around all season. But I prefer to chase those other guys.
Or Corey Davis.
Corey Davis.
Dante Pettis is the highest projected owned of all of them, but he's way down by Keyshawn Johnson. So
I think you made a good point earlier though about how like these wide receiver cornerback, like there's guys are moving around too. I think that's still one of the biggest problems with that analysis. So I have one other guy I'll throw in here before we move on. Allen Robinson, 5,500. I know he's going to see Lattimore. He's still a guy that can beat this matchup. He's so cheap, and like he's top 3 on the slate in weighted opportunity rating over the last 4 games. He's right there with Michael Thomas, Stephon Diggs, Will Fuller. Like I still think that Allen Robinson's in play.
There's a follow-up for you, Joe.
All right, let's hear it.
Do you feel better if Trubisky's at quarterback or if it's still Chase Daniel? Because that's the follow-up question.
I mean, Trubisky, I'm actually kind of a Trubisky guy for fantasy just because he does run a little bit. So yeah, I would prefer Trubisky to play. I mean, I don't like watching him throw. If I play an Allen Robinson's play, I'm not going to watch the game. That's for sure. But it's like, remember when we played Bortles a couple of years ago, and you just know that you can't watch the game if you're going to play Bortles, but you know he's going to get there because he's going to run and he's going to.
I actually watched it just before the entertainment factor. I definitely watched it.
Oh, there you go.
Bortles used to just whip the ball at Allen Robinson. He'd be like 4 feet away from him and just smoke him in the head.
That's the only reason I thought about it, because we were talking about Allen Robinson, but just like watching the play is like so tilting.
Yeah.
Oh, you know who else is like that and runs a little bit? Daniel Jones. All right, let's talk tight ends. Anybody we didn't? Hey, Chris, this is Joe's segment. Hey, he wanted to talk some of these low price guys. Here you go, tournament wise.
Yeah, let's hear it. Who are you feeling?
Let's hear
I don't know. I think
Knox?
there's a couple guys that you could at least make a kind of slight argument for in tournaments. I'm not going to go with the Noah Fant, just like super cheap play that probably everyone hates me for at this point.
Well, you brought him up like 17 times. Let me guess. Dawson Knox and Darren Fells, are those your two?
No, I'm not going there. I think that Hawkinson is reasonable. I think that Jared Cook is reasonable just based on the amount of routes that they're running.
Jared Cook's the worst person in the world.
Yeah, Hawkinson in particular, I just think that people kind of forget about this guy a little bit. 3,600. Minnesota, you can say what you want about their defense, but they're definitely a tight end funnel. So we saw what Waller did against them. They're allowing 10.7 targets per game to opposing tight ends this year. So at 3,600. A team that's going to throw. Stafford's looked pretty good this year too. I think that's probably something we haven't talked about at all. He's someone that's throwing deep as well. But I think Hawkinson at 3,600 is worth a flyer.
For everybody tuning in for the first time, Joe Holkinson is on purpose. So just people know, like, he's not mispronouncing his name.
I said Hawkinson. Come on.
Yeah,
that was a one-time thing where I said Hawkinson, and then the next week I think that's when he got hurt, right? So I was probably my fault.
Yeah.
Chris, not for me, honestly. Like, you're looking cheap. I know Joe said no, but I'm legitimately on Darren Fells for 3 of the last 4 games, and he's been a huge part of this offense with no Kenny Stills. And the Colts are, while good against top receivers because Desir's been playing great, they're very vulnerable against tight ends so far. Yeah, in that price, 3,100. Luke Wilson could be a dart throw.
Foster Moreau scored against them.
Yeah, good point. For sure. You can go down to that price. Everett is still kind of interesting at 37. I just don't think the Rams are going to have success running the football.
Yeah. If Jared Goff didn't suck at throwing the ball and then overthrow Gerald Everett wide open, everybody would be all over Gerald Everett again.
Yeah, so nobody's going to be on him this week after that donut, and everybody was on him. I just don't think the Rams are going to be able to run the football, even with Gurley.
You know who has a higher projected ownership than Everett and Hawkinson? Do you know? Do you want to guess?
At the tight end position?
Yeah. Somebody just got hurt for his team.
Oh, it's
Wilson with 2 L's.
Oh, yeah.
People are just like the new tight end.
Are people going to go there?
No. Yeah,
apparently.
I did just bring him up then when you mentioned Fells.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't personally, but I would imagine people will, because the tight end, the way that Russell Wilson is thrown.
I know. I'm gonna go to Joe on this one because he said I'm not going there. So you'll appreciate it either. Oh, okay. I was gonna say you probably appreciate what I said in the tweet to somebody who asked that about DFS. Seasonal, I'm okay with it because seasonal you're just picking at scraps right now.
Yeah, totally different.
But in DFS, I said you're gonna take the third L if you put them in your lineup. So
there's no point.
There's my tweet of the day.
What do you really hope? You're just hoping for one, like
you didn't appreciate my joke.
Catches.
Well, just it's so thin down there. Like Hunter Henry's at 4K. Like at that point, you find the salary, I think, just to play Hunter Henry. Darren Fells, if you really wanted to go, I'm with you. I'm definitely playing Darren Fells over Luke Wilson. I'll tell you that.
Okay. All right. So before we hit our stacks, DFS lineups wise, defenses, cash and tournament. Because we kind of tie them both together every single week. So that's why I saved them till now.
Niners for me, if you can get up to the Bills, great. That's pretty obvious. You saw what Tom Brady did in Buffalo earlier this year. Absolutely nothing. So I don't expect Ryan Fitzpatrick and the Dolphins to be able to move the football that well. So them and then the Niners have they've been so consistent every single week, double-digit fantasy points, it seems like, and a league best in terms of just passing yards allowed. They haven't given up anything.
I think another one that would be decent. I think I've been targeting Minnesota maybe more than people just because I think their offensive line is horrendous, and I'm not a big Kirk Cousins fan. But Detroit 2,300, like the Lions. They had 3 turnovers on Monday night. They had that bad call, which we won't get into. But multiple turnovers, I guess, in each of their past 4 games.
Plural.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. Cousins is one of those guys. He can either be like pretty solid, which we've seen the last couple of weeks, or he can completely implode. So at 2,300, I think Detroit's interesting.
That's funny because as a tournament on the other side, I feel like the Vikings
Both
are a
teams,
fun
yeah.
one. Yeah, because Stafford could always just go crazy, side arming in the 3/4 slot, throwing it from 17 different angles and go for one of his just lunatic type of games. The one that you guys didn't mention, I feel a little bit better about in cash than tournament, but I'm not going to stay completely away from the tournament wise. We brought it up earlier. The offensive line for the Chargers has been god awful. Like, I mean, we're talking awful, 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 where you don't even get a second before Philip Rivers has somebody in his face. And it's leading to turnovers. It's leading to this offense falling apart. I still like your Mike Williams point, Joe, but if you're looking for a turn, like the Titans defense has been near 10 points most weeks and hit double digits twice. I think they're a fun defense this week.
Yeah, I think they're interesting. It's defense, right? Like, I guess, should we touch on the thing from last week about how these defenses are just like sub 2K at that point? Like, I think in certain spots, like they were just piled on in cash. Like it's talking about the Jets and whatnot. Just maybe it's not a week where it makes sense to pay all the way down for someone on DraftKings like
the
Miami
Dolphins
at 1,500.
Over the Bills.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Allen. I don't know. I think that those defenses you can always like at least think about. I think especially.
I will say for tournament wise. I'll get your opinion here real quick, Chris, too, obviously, is I'm not doing the Dolphins, but I have debated the Raiders against the Packers.
Yeah, I mean...
No Devontae Adams, no Geronimo Allison. We talked about Valdez-Scantling. You're telling me the top two options, and I just talked about the fact that I like Aaron Jones earlier, but you're telling me all those where it's like Aaron Rodgers has been playing great for what he's been given so far, but we've also seen bad Aaron Rodgers, and it happens occasionally. This is a pure tournament, and it'd be one of my 10 lineups. It'd be like 10% at most, maybe even like more like 5%. But I just, for what Joe brought up, I'm answering the question. I'm saying if you're going to go that deep, I think the Raiders are the intriguing one, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's the same kind of thing we talked about with just spending down on Malcolm Brown and what we were able to do with our lineups. I had some Jets last week in tournaments. I didn't feel good about it, and they didn't do a whole lot. But to spend 1.5, I think they were 1.5, and you're seeing
what about the
Dolphins
Colts
1.5?
at 2? If you can get one of Deshaun
I
Watson's
actually
off
don't
games
mind throwing the Dolphins maybe in just one because of what Joe said with all the turnovers. Like Rodgers, I get your point as well. He just doesn't turn the ball over that much unless it's on his wideout. And I don't even remember who he hit Shepard in the head, and then there's a turnover. Shepard cut. He's not throwing to him anymore. But the Dolphins could maybe potentially create some turnovers. Just looking at their game log, like 1.022, -3, like that's the risk. Negative points.
The negative point. You might as well have just left the spot empty. I mean, to be honest, look, 1, 3, 1, 2. When you talk about interceptions for Josh Allen, including 5 fumbles.
Yeah, he's turning the ball over quite often, and he's gonna be very popular too.
All right, so let's wrap these things up with our stacks and lineups. Let's do some stacks.
Stack attack.
Chris, you're talking, so you get to go first.
I really like the Rams this week. I think everyone just saw what they did last week, and they were just so brutal. It's just what I've seen from the Falcons. They just can't tackle anybody. Their defense is just not good at all. So I'm going to, it does make sense. Kupp a lot. I do like him, but I'm just going to try to go off the board a little bit and go with Cooks. So Goff to Cooks, but I definitely don't have any problem with Woods or Kupp. I think a lot of people will have some success in this game.
Joe?
So I guess pending health, I guess we might as well get our Josh Allen to John Brown out of the way. I mean, the price is pretty solid on both sites, and it is Miami. You're obviously taking a little bit of a risk that is just the game isn't close, but at that point, John Brown could have gone deep for 2 long touchdowns already. So John Brown's someone that, I mean, we haven't been able to play him because of the injury and whatnot, and Josh Allen has been hurt as well. I don't want to forget about these guys because we know the upside, their connection's been there so far.
All right. So no Baltimore for you?
I mean, every week.
There you go. Every week. My stack, Cardinals, baby. Kyler Murray, David Johnson, Larry, the Cardinals defense against Daniel Jones. So I will straight, not even going to waste time. Let's just go right into it with our lineups.
If you want to learn more about how to become a profitable daily fantasy sports player and better, start now by hitting the subscribe icon in the bottom right hand corner so you don't miss anything. I do go live on Twitch each and every Sunday morning at 11:30 Eastern time, so come hang out with us, twitch.tv/Joe Holka. We also go live in most weeks directly after kickoff, sweat the games together. I mentioned that a couple times on the show this week, so come hang out with us. Make sure you're following me over there as well, and I'll see you guys next week.